Our next speaker is somebody who has also said no at great personal cost. And I'm talking about Ian Smith, legendary gym owner who rejected tyrannical mandates. He's been harassed, arrested, fined. He's had assets seized, his business barricaded, professional licenses revoked. Okay, but he didn't yield. He kept his business open because exercise is exactly what we need to keep ourselves healthy. I mean, imagine a health mandate that says, no, you're not allowed to exercise. Like, that should be suspect right there, right? So I'm grateful to everyone here and Dan O'Neill and all the other organizers and volunteers here. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. So please join me in welcoming Ian Smith, the legend. Thank you.
I am a real American. How you guys doing today? My name is Ian Smith. I'm one of the co-owners of the now infamous Atilis gym, otherwise known as Governor Murphy's favorite gym. Very, very happy to be here. When I got the invite to come here, I said yes right away. I try to come out to as many events as I possibly can because I think stuff like this is incredibly important. It's an opportunity to share experiences. It's an opportunity for us to communicate and to organize and to grow our community, because I do believe that the answer to most of our problems lies in the communities. It lies in our culture, and it lies in our togetherness as people, because I've witnessed the power of people coming together. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story. Some of you guys may know the story. Some of you guys may know part of it. It's a pretty good story. It's the story of Atilis Gym, and I hope I can leave you with a couple lessons from that, and about my own personal plans moving forward, and what I think is a sensible solution moving forward from especially the last 2 years of our life. March 2020, I think we all remember what was going on then. We were tuning into our televisions and hearing about this grave danger that was approaching from overseas. COVID-19, it was this, if you remember CNN at the time, there was videos of people dropping dead in the streets. We were watching videos of and seeing news reports of hospitals stacking bodies outside and burying them in wastelands in New York City, and just complete hysteria and fear ratcheted all the way up to the maximum. And that order came on, I believe it was March 16th here in New Jersey. We were hearing whispers about martial law and all these other crazy ideas that I think none of us ever really thought would ever happen. And then came that shutdown order. And my business partner and I, Frank Trombetti, we had just opened a gym called Atilis Gym. We were open for 9 months. When we bought Atilis, it was a failing gym that was about 3 months behind on all its rent. And my partner and I, we decided to go all in on ourselves. I was running a successful personal training business at the time, about 12 years experience in the industry. My business partner was running a nutrition shop at a time. He's got about 25 years in the area. So we came together, we put all our eggs into this basket, we bought this dumpster fire of a gym. And we went to work right away. And that was an immediate success. We were 9 months in, and they came along and said, shut your business down, but still pay your rent. You'll be open in 14 days. And to To say we were skeptical, I think, is a bit of an understatement. However, at the time, the climate was one of hysteria and of fear. And against our own intuition, we closed down. Because at the end of the day, even though we didn't believe what we were being told, we weren't confident enough in our understanding of what this was to confidently stay open, knowing that we wouldn't hurt people, because that's the last thing we ever wanted to do, was to harm people. So we shut our doors. But when somebody came along and said, you're not allowed to run your business, we had a lot of questions. So we started paying attention to two things. We paid attention to the politics. We wanted to know who these people were who just came into our lives and told us that we were no longer allowed to earn a living. We were no longer allowed to send our children to school. We were no longer allowed to attend church. We were no longer allowed to gather in a park like this, if you remember the insanity. So we wanted to know who these people were and what they were up to. But we also wanted to understand what this existential threat was that we were facing. We were being told that it was everywhere. It was in our groceries. It was in the air. It was outside. It was everywhere. So we started studying the science behind COVID-19, and very quickly, neither of those two things made a whole lot of sense. What we were being seen on the television was not being mirrored in the studies that we were looking at. This thing was not as deadly as they were making it out to be. It was not as scary as they were making it out to be. And well, the politics were politics as usual. Politicians overpromised and underdelivered. They told us that they would have our backs. The money never came. The support never came. So when they passed the $2.6 trillion economic stimulus bill, that was the big old red flag that pushed us over the edge. And that gave us everything that we needed to reopen, because that bill was about 1,000 pages long, and I can guarantee you not a single member of Congress actually read through the entire thing. We did. We looked through a lot of it. And what we found out was that they were manufacturing a crisis. They were manufacturing a crisis because the federal government was paying states for positive tests, not positive cases in hospitals. A lot of us know that. But the state of New Jersey, for instance, was making was being awarded $18,000 per positive PCR test. So we said, okay, what's a PCR test? And we looked, and the information was very clear that it was not meant for diagnosis, that it was a research tool, and that they were wildly inaccurate. But that was the number that they were showing everybody: cases, 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 cases. So we came to the conclusion very quickly that this was all about fear and it was all about control, especially on day 11, when they passed this. We were supposed to be opening in 3 days, and they were going to award an extra $600 a week to anybody who was afraid enough to stay home from their jobs. And they were offering $500 per parent, an extra $500 if you had a kid. And right there, that was it for us. So we decided that we were going to reopen our business, that we were not going to be a casualty of this thing that we didn't quite fully understand, but we didn't like it. Government was growing wildly out of control. We were looking at a country that had surrendered most of its rights without question. I remember we never stopped going to work. I remember driving to and from work, like Bill said, and seeing 295 completely empty. And it was this really eerie feeling, because the country just laid down. And that's not the America that I was told I lived in. I was told that I lived in a country of fighters, of people who were fiercely independent, and who were not afraid to say no. And we're not afraid to challenge authority. So we said, all right, we're going to open our gym. So we spent the next 6 weeks researching everything we possibly could. We wanted to understand how we could mitigate COVID, how we could keep people safe, how we could reopen with a threat present and still keep people safe and still add value to our communities, because that's what we wanted to do. That's why we opened a gym. We opened a gym to empower our communities. Well, Tucker Carlson caught wind of the story, so 1 week before we reopened, I went on to Tucker Carlson, and he asked the question on air that night, and he said, "You are about to defy your governor by opening your business next week. Are you ready to do that?" And I said, "Absolutely." The phone never stopped ringing that night. It never stopped ringing the next day. And we realized that we were stepping out into something that was unknown, that was very scary, and that we didn't really know what was going to happen. We didn't know if we were going to get arrested. We didn't know what was going to happen. But we knew what we were doing was right, because the amount of support that immediately came in, the amount of love that came to us, the amount of volunteering of time, energy, money, and resources was overwhelming. So on May 18th, 2 months to the day, when they said it was going to be 14 days, it was 8 weeks later, we reopened our doors. We actually locked ourselves in the building the night before because Governor Murphy told the police not to let us in the building. So on Sunday night, along with some volunteers, our friends, our family, our loved ones, we chained the doors of the gym from the inside. We boarded up our windows so that they couldn't see inside, and we prepared for stepping out into the unknown and challenging authority to the highest degree. And I don't think many of us slept that night. There's people laying on the floor of the gym. There's people working out. We were preparing final details of our safety protocol, and we started to hear through the night this crowd growing. And we just heard voices, and we were peeking through little cracks in the window, and we were seeing American flags and Gadsden flags, and just this buzzing outside. And then we started to see the news anchors go up, and every single news agency in the country was outside. And then we opened our doors. At about 7 o'clock in the morning, Frank and I stood as we took the chains off. We looked at each other, and we had agreed very early on that if we were going to do this, it was all the way. We weren't going to stick our toes in the water and decide that this was too much of a challenge for us. We were going to commit to this idea that nobody was going to come into our lives. Not a governor, not a president, not a congressman, not a police officer was going to come into our lives and tell us that we can or cannot do something. We made that promise because that promise was not only important to one another, but it was important to our families, it was important to our children, it was important to our communities. It wasn't about a gym. The gym was the vessel in which we were moving through. It was about liberty and personal freedom and the ability to make your own choices. So we flung those doors open, and there was about 500-600 people in the parking lot, American flags waving, every news agency in the country. But most importantly, lined up around the building were our members, waiting in lines from about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. There was a couple hundred of them wrapped around the building waiting to come inside just to support us, knowing that the police had posted a sign saying that they were going to get arrested if they walked in. So Monday we opened. We had a good day. We got a couple citations from the police officers. We thanked them, took some pictures with them, ripped them up, and walked away, and the gym stayed open. Tuesday, the police decided they were going to escalate the situation, and they started arresting some of our members. They started handing out citations, following people back to their cars and their homes, threatening them with random statutes like violating a governor's orders, which means essentially nothing. But the gym stayed open, and that was the plan all the way through. No matter what happened, no matter what they tried to do to us, no matter what they threatened us with, no matter how much they tried to stop us, the gym was going to stay open at all costs. So Wednesday, the gym stayed open. They set up a camera in the parking lot, and they were pulling people over down the street, again, trying to intimidate them by the use of force, something the state does pretty well these days. And then they came and they said, all right, well, the police aren't doing their job. They're not arresting them because there's nothing to arrest them for. And they brought the health department in, and they showed up in Wednesday night in the middle of the night in an unmarked white van, and they slapped a health department violation that basically said you're closed because coronavirus. No health department official ever stepped foot inside of our building. They never took a look at our safety protocol. They never called, texted, emailed, nothing. They just said, we're the health department and you're going to listen to us. So when we got there on Thursday, we said, the gym's open. The same thing on Friday, but on Friday night, they came in the middle of the night with the Camden County sheriffs and a locksmith who apparently has no morals, and they changed the locks on our building. So We said, okay, all right, now we'll go to court. At this point, we still had a little bit of faith in the American system, in the checks and balances that are presented to us by our founding fathers, and we said, all right, we'll take you to court, and in the meantime, we'll play nice. We've made our protest. Well, the courts disappointed us just as much as the executive branch and the police did, and the health department did as well. So we decided that we were going to take our gym outside every day. So for about a month, we were taking 40,000 pounds worth of equipment outside into the parking lot every single day on hand trucks and pallet jacks, and we were having about 300 to 400 people show up every day in the middle of June to work out on the blacktop, just because government was telling them that they couldn't. The situation just continued to escalate. By the time we went back inside on 4th of July. We figured that was going to be a good day to get arrested on Independence Day. Unfortunately, all we got was violation of a court order. And that's when they began fining us $15,000 per day for every day that we were in operation. But sticking to the mission, the gym stayed open every day. We said, we're not paying them, and you can't shut us down. And thankfully, we had the community support, and we had people in the gym all hours of the day. At the height of COVID mania, we were doing about 755 people per day. We had people traveling from 7 different states on a daily basis, from Connecticut, New York, all parts of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, up and down the state, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia. People were driving and getting hotels just to work out for 2 days in a row. And it continued to escalate from there. Governor Murphy then decided that he was going to seize assets from our bank account to the tune of $170,000. And that day, when we found out that they had taken that money, I did what I was always doing at that time, and I went on social media and said, hey guys, here's the deal. They took all of our money, but the gym is open. The gym's going to stay open. We'll see you guys here. We don't know how we're going to make it work, but we will. By the end of that week, we had $100,000 in t-shirt orders from people around the country who just wanted to make sure that we stayed open. We didn't even have the inventory. But people didn't care. People just wanted to make sure that we succeeded in our mission of defying the government at all costs. And that continued to escalate. But every time that they escalated the situation, what they did was just help us out. Every single one of these escalations by government, as long as we were willing to stand up to an unfair system and take the punishment of that unfair system, we gained momentum and we gained traction. Because every time they did something, they either pissed people off more who were already pissed off, or they brought new people into the fold. And I use the example of the $173,000. What they did when they took our money is they wound up pissing off the entire cryptocurrency community. These were people who were either not paying attention or uninterested in what was going on at the moment, but when they found out, wait, government came into your life and took your money, they were like, whoa, hold on. Here's $20,000 of crypto, and here's a crypto wallet, because we want you to stay open now. And we experienced that every step of the way. We were arrested. We had a total of 90 municipal citations, 9 criminal charges. We wound up taking the doors off of our hinges the second time that they came to lock them, because if there's no doors, you can't lock our gym. We were open for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 47 days straight. We slept in the gym. We slept in shifts. We were sleeping in tanning beds, in closets, making sure that the gym stayed open at all costs. And there was always people in the gym, people working out in the gym at 2 o'clock in the morning, making sure that the police wouldn't come in and shut us down. And eventually the government ran out of things to do to us, and they had made themselves look so stupid and foolish that they eventually went away. And they tied us up in the court system for a very long time. We're still in the court system. And then they took our business license, and they said, you're not allowed to do business anymore, because you have been a threat to the community. And in that meeting, we asked what proof they had. And this is actually something that a town council member said. He said that people were afraid to go into the dollar store in our parking lot because the gym was open and they were afraid of COVID. So If you've ever seen the inside of a dollar store, I don't really know what you're afraid of if you're okay with going into there. But nonetheless, we stayed open, and what we said was, well, we haven't charged members from the beginning anyway because it wasn't about the money, so we're not a gym anymore, we're a rec center, and we sell t-shirts. And somehow we made it work. Somehow we made it through, and eventually our business license was reinstated after the township ran out of legal money. And we're well on our way to finishing the fight. We've been in court, 6 different courts. I might be mistaken, might be 5 different courts. And we're still fighting, and we're still powered by the people that support us. And somehow we've survived this. And the gym is busy, it's full of people, it's full of happy, healthy people. We finally stopped counting, but we were up around 400,000 visits to the facility, and not a single outbreak of COVID has been linked to our facility. We actually have a public storage unit full of the slips. We were making people take their temperature and sign their name as their sign-in, and we have a public storage unit full of them. We've invited Governor Murphy to come find a case of COVID in there, but obviously he's declined at every opportunity. So there's a lot of lessons in this story, and it was by far the best thing we've ever done. It was the hardest thing we've ever done, but we learned a lot, and we learned that government is never the solution to the problem. It is always the creation of the problem. If government would have left us alone from the beginning, people would have figured out a way to take care of themselves. If COVID had turned out to be as scary and as deadly as they claimed it was, then people probably would have self-regulated and helped each other out. But the reality is that government came into our lives, and they told us, first, we were going to stay home. You weren't allowed to make money, you weren't allowed to go see your family, you weren't allowed to socialize, you weren't allowed to go to church, you weren't allowed to work out, you weren't allowed to do anything except be afraid to shut up. Then they said you're going to mask. You're going to mask everywhere you go. You're going to cover up the thing that makes you human, your face, your expressions. And your children are going to do it too. And if you want to fly, and if you want to do this, you want to go into stores, you're going to listen to us. And if not, we're going to punish you. Then they came along and said, well, now we have a solution to the problem that we've created. You're going to take this vaccine that we're pretty much partners in, or we're going to fire you from your jobs. We're going to ostracize your children. We're going to make them get tested on a daily basis. And all of this has one thing in common. It's government creating problems where there are none. So we learned not only that government doesn't fix problems, it creates them. We learned most importantly that people solve problems and communities solve problems. And that when people come together behind a united cause, regardless of their background, if you ever walk in our gym, it's one of the most diverse places in the world. We have young, we have old, we have people of all races and backgrounds, united by one idea, is that they don't want to be told what to do or how to live their lives. And all these people got behind this one idea of Atilis Gym, and the entire weight of the New Jersey government couldn't stop us from opening those doors. So now we're looking at a whole host of other problems. We have all these issues going on with our country. Our dollar is rapidly losing value. Our public school system is an absolute mess. We're still dealing with the ramifications of COVID lockdowns on our economy and supply chain. Small businesses are hurting. You name it, there's plenty of problems. But I can tell you one thing, government is not going to solve any of those. And I think that's the really, really important lesson, is that nobody is coming to save you. Not Joe Biden, that's for sure. But there's no president, there's no governor, there's no congressman who is going to come along and fix all these problems for you. Because if they fix all these problems, they're going to be out of a job. So they don't really have an incentive to work very hard or very smart. And I say this to you, standing in front of you as a congressional candidate running in the 3rd District of New Jersey. So how does that all make sense? I decided to run for Congress for a couple reasons. One, because I witnessed the ugliest side of government over the last 2 years. I've witnessed how reckless, how powerful it has become, how stupidly it operates, and how little it cares about liberty and the individual. So I decided one day when I was driving home that I didn't want to wait for the next thing that government was going to bring my way. So what was I going to do? I didn't want to sit around and wait for the next lockdown or whatever else comes of government's actions. So I decided that I'm going to do my best to become an elected official and change the culture of politics, because I believe that we have a cultural issue when it comes to the way that we run our government. And that's a pretty simple way to describe it. We have a class of people who consider themselves one thing and one thing only, and that's politicians. Career politicians will never serve the people correctly. They will always serve their own interests. It is a fundamental flaw. It is not the way it was intended to be. You know, one of my favorite stories is about George Washington, who fought the Revolutionary War, and when he was done, he wanted to go home to his house in Virginia. And when they were forming the government of the United States, they said, "George, we want you to come back, and we want you to be president." And he actually said no. He said no, not only once, twice, but multiple times. It took them an entire year to convince George Washington to come back and be president. Why? Because it wasn't a lucrative career. It wasn't an opportunity to make a bunch of money. It wasn't an opportunity to catapult yourself into the upper echelons of society. It was a service. It was a service to the community. It was a service to your country. It was a hard job. And that's exactly what it should be. You know, I live in a small town in New Jersey, Delanco, and my next door neighbor, I can remember when I was a kid, was the mayor of my town. And when he was done his 2 terms, he didn't go try to be a state senator. He didn't run for Congress. He didn't look to the next thing that he could do in politics. He did a good job. He acted in the best interest of his community. And when he was done, he left the door open for the next man or woman who wished to serve Delanco in the same way that he did. And then he went back to his life because he had built something outside of politics. And we have a political ruling class right now who has never done or accomplished anything in the real world. These people have never worked hard. They've never built businesses. It's a parasite class full of people who will protect their own interests and the interests of their friends at all costs. They will lie, they will cheat, they will steal. They will tell you whatever that they think you want to hear just to get your vote. And then as soon as you turn around and go start living your life, they automatically go right back to business. That's a fundamental flaw. So I decided I was going to run for politics because I think people should be in politics and not politicians. And I'm running as a Republican because I do believe that the Republican base of voters is the best vehicle to energize people to get involved in their communities. Not because I think the GOP has a good platform. Not because I think Democrats are the problem. I think big government is the problem, the establishment right and the establishment left. So I encourage you, 2 things, and I'll wrap this up. Number 1, if you want to see the world change, you have to step up and you have to start sacrificing your time, your energy, your money, in any way that you can to support and build causes that are going to get actual results. Like I said, community solves these problems. We have inner cities that are falling apart. They've been falling apart for years, and politicians have been promising for years that they're going to fix it. And they don't. They don't. But you get a group of concerned citizens together, and you want to go help people, there's a million different places that you can start. So get involved and start paying attention. It's not fun, I promise you that. You can look at the story of Atilis, and I told you the highlight reel of all the fun, kind of interesting stuff that happened, all the days where we kicked the doors in, and things were exciting and fun. But most of the last 2 years have been painful, have been challenging, and have been very boring. and we've been grinding and grinding and grinding. And it's important that we remember, if we want things to change, then we have to be willing to go through all these hard times. We have to be willing to sacrifice, and we have to be willing to put in the work. And the second thing is, get involved in politics. And I don't mean that you have to run. I mean that you should support the right people. There's a reason that we're not getting good people in politics, and that's because culturally we're very lazy when it comes to politics. Every 2 or 4 years we start paying attention for a little while, and we go to the ballot box and we press the button for whoever's on our team, and we turn our back and we expect that that individual is going to do the right thing. And the reality is we don't even know how that individual got on the ballot in most cases, because we're not paying attention during the times that matter, and that's during the primary season, when you have good politicians, good people who are trying to serve the community but don't have the backing of the GOP establishment, of the DNC establishment, so you never hear about these people. They don't have the money to get started because they need your help. They don't have the name recognition because they need your help. The GOP won't give it to them. The DNC won't give it to them. I've experienced it myself. Fortunately, I have the name recognition, and I have a lot of people who will support me, and we've been able to bust through the New Jersey GOP trying to stop us at every turn. But we don't have to operate like that anymore. Again, it comes back to this idea of sacrificing. We need to pay attention. We need to educate ourselves, and we need to be watching these people at all times. Hopefully, we'll get to a point in the future where you don't have to do that as much. But until we fix the system, it's about involvement and it's about community. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, sir. Ian Smith.